Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Mary Jacobs. I'm the Associate Dean of the School of Business and Technology and the MBA Program Director here at St. Mary's. It is great to welcome you, and we're looking forward to spending the next 45 minutes or so together and hearing from our impressive presenter here, Dr. Paul Kotz, on this topic of the science of well-being. This is the fifth in a series of six speaker series that we started in the fall that we've done on different topics around thought leadership, business, trends, and career advice that we've kind of broadened across our different programs here in the School of Business Technology. And this topic, which is timely and relevant to so many people, we're really excited to hear about. So the format is going to be a little bit different if you've joined us before. So typically we've done kind of a Q&A back and forth, but Dr. Kotz has this great presentation ready to share with us. And we really want to invite you to ask questions in the chat, and then we'll leave time at the end of Dr. Kotz's formal remarks to hear from you and feedback and questions that you might have. So what I'd like to do is just did a bit of an overview, introduce Dr. Kotz, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started. So every moment of every day, you can bring people down or you can lift them up. You, one small person, by the energy you project. So join us as you are today in this exploration of pursuing happiness and well-being. And we will cover focusing our energies on more joy and less adversarial situations, pursuing happiness, is it just an illusion? And then how to avoid getting stuck in the mud. So that is a lot to cover, Dr. Kotz, and we're looking forward to your remarks. And I just want to do a bit of an introduction and opening about your background and what you do here at St. Mary's. You are the director of the Doctorate of the Business Administration, as well as the Doctorate in Educational Leadership programs here at St. Mary's, and a 34-year career and educator with education and business expertise. Very impressive, and we're very, very grateful to work with you. You work as an executive coach for corporations and companies specializing in Myers-Briggs 360-degree and 360-degree review assessments, in addition to all of the incredible presenting and the writing that you do. You often counsel individuals for those that are in crisis or career transition, and you've written articles in the areas of teaching leadership and unique characteristics of individuals who are considered effective in what they do. And here's just a great accolade to speak about. In 2022, you received the Distinguished Lasallian Educator Award at St. Mary's for teaching and leadership, which was just an incredible recognition for who you are and the difference that you make here at St. Mary's University and with your students and colleagues and people that get to know you. You've given us many talks on motivation to be our best selves, and you know what it's like to hit rock bottom, emerge from the abyss, and begin anew. And I will add, as a friend and colleague, that I get a chance to follow you on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you often write very inspiring stories about what people can do and what's happening in everyday life and the impact that meeting people and the encounters that have really impacted your life, and you share your wisdom and your stories with others. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Paul Kotz, and we will again plan in about 30 minutes or so as you complete your presentation to talk and review the questions that come up along the way. So thank you.
Oh, Mary, a generous introduction. I can give some perspective on this topic, everyone. Well-being, is something that I think we all need to be concerned with, not just today, but any time in our lives. And, this elusive idea of pursuing happiness, to some it's an illusion, or you say, we can never be fully happy. There is some truth in that, but I think we can approach contentment. One of the things I've found is that I had a discussion with Dave Winfield. One time he was speaking for a Hall of Fame event, and he's a St. Paul native. And he always said that if you're going to speak, to remember the 5 B's, and that's to be brief, brother, be brief. So in light of our time, Mary Jacobs, our Associate Dean, is going to be handling some of our questions toward the end. But I wanted to share a few thoughts. I've been on the earth a long time, and I thought that you might be inspired, possibly be motivated by some of the things I've observed in our world today. One thing I can say, I'm a Viking fan, but I continue to suffer. And because I've always had faith in this team. So we're going to gonna arrive at some disappointments in life, but this, my friends, of course, is a first world problem. And there are times, where you've got to just meet people where they're at. You can see there's a connection being built between these two individuals. Maybe the balloon's got a little tear in it, but there's a connection being made, and no words do not need to be said in this case. But I go back to John Palovitz, who said that giving thanks today for those compassionate people out there, the lovers, the helpers, the givers, and healers who see more than just themselves, who move through the world with open hands and not closed fists. Thank you. Keep going. It matters. Beautiful vistas are important to me. Maybe they are to you. But one thing I find is that we can travel the roads, and sometimes they're uphill, like you see on the left, but still a work of beauty. And then other times we might be on flat land, or maybe we're going downhill and all seems well. To give you some perspective, I have taught the science of well-being and trying to pursue happiness to the best way we can with all of the challenges that come up in our lives. But these are two of my groups from Colombia, in particular in Bogota, Colombia. The first group was through a Lasallian university called Unisalia, Bogota, and the one on the right is a public university, um, Universidad de La Salle, Universidad. And so both of these groups, they seek better opportunities in the world, in particular the United States. And so it was a joy to spend 2-week time periods with each group. Same time, I also want to share something. I don't know if you remember this from when you were young, and for my younger audience out there, you may not have seen this, but this was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And in this case, on the top right, I believe that's Susie the doll. As a child, when I watched Rudolph, there was this concept where they were all sent, the toys that didn't seem to fit in were sent to the island of misfit toys. And there were squirt guns that would shoot jelly. There were trains with square wheels, things that didn't quite make sense. So they were sent to the island of misfit toys. But as a child, I saw this and I saw nothing wrong with Susie. And I always wondered why she was sent to the island. And, upon reflection as an adult, it's possible that she lacked confidence or just didn't appeal to people on the shelf. But we all have something to offer. This is telling for me, and it brings me joy, but much can happen in 70 years. You see a young mom with her 2 sons, and now 70 years later, you see that same picture. A lot can change in our lives, everyone, and we have to take stock of the time we have on earth. And from an employee standpoint, working in companies and schools, there's always an employee out there who still thinks of you because you were kind to them. Never stop being that leader. I work with people like that at St. Mary's University, and it's what keeps me here. A little bit on components of a good life. And these come from different sources. I can always provide you with references on these, but I want you to just take a look. The wheel of life is kind of fascinating. If you could keep these things in balance, it's possible that you're going to feel a sense of good well-being. You got to have a decent career. You got to have some fun and recreation. Your health is so important. Your family and friends are important. Romance can help. Personal growth. Your finances have to be in somewhat good order, and then the physical environment. And you'll notice there's a lot of other pieces that can fit into that puzzle or this wheel of life. And you have to celebrate. It may not be your last day of school, but it's very important. You're in the midst of probably spring semester if you're here at St. Mary's. I want everybody, if you can try this with no calculators. Normally, I would have you in a classroom setting, but in a webinar, you'll just have to do this along with me. Try to follow this along, no calculators. But 1,000 plus 40, you get 1,040. You add another 1,000, you're at 2,040, right? Another 30, 2,070. I think you're with me. Another 1,000, 3,070, you're correct. And if you had 20, 3,090. Everybody with me so far? Add another 1,000, you're at 4,090. I know you're competent and you can handle this. Many of you are undergrad and graduate students. You're saying, why is he giving me a question like this? Well, if you add 10, what do you get? Well, try this out on somebody someday, but often people will say, and maybe you did, 5,000 or cinco mil in Spanish. But if you revisit this, you'll find that it's actually 4,100. And the reason I show you this, some people do get it right. The story goes, I can't verify this for sure, but even this was given to Einstein. And translating it in German, he actually said 5,000, but then immediately corrected himself to say 4,100. But one of the things that happens is we think in patterns. We sometimes jump to conclusions, and that can inhibit our well-being and happiness as individuals. Other thing I would share with you is, what do you see? And you can just see, well, for most of you, you probably see the rabbit in the hat, right? That's what I would see initially. But if you look closely, you'll notice there are two thes here. And often we overlook those details, and that can get in our way too of having good relationships, good work relationships, and even just, seeing life in a different way. This was an interesting thing I shared with people, especially in the high school setting. I taught high school for 15 years, and this may seem like almost an infomercial, but can you achieve 101% in life? Well, let me start off with this methodology. So you have to buy into my methodology here. How many letters in the alphabet? We know there are 26, A through Z. And if you have the numbers 1 through 26 and line them up, so A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and even Z is 26. If you follow that, believe it or not, hard work gives you 98%. I think we'd all agree in our lives, you got to have the hard work to get anywhere in life. Knowledge, very important here at our university and other places, gives you 96%. So they're pretty much on equal footing. But I maintain this. Attitude, if you try this exercise out, will give you exactly 100%. And attitude to me is more important than knowledge and even hard work. But I think they're all important and relevant. And it may be a coincidence, but I have also found that data, information, and new knowledge, things that we acquire each day in our lives, make us better decision makers. And by acquiring these, possibly leads us to happiness. You don't want to keep making the same mistakes twice, right? And sometimes we're so preoccupied with something in our lives that we miss out on what we're supposed to be doing. Maslow's hierarchy of needs would agree with this, but if you feel like you're not doing well in your life, take stock at least in these 10 areas. You have a roof over your head. You ate today. You have a good heart. You wish good for others. You have clean water. We're lucky in this country for that. Someone cares for you, at least one person. You strive to be better. You have clean clothes and you have a dream and you're breathing. I've also found in life, my friends, that there's light and there's darkness, and there can be beauty in both at the same time. You may be putting on a good face up front, but there's more beneath the surface. Yet at the same time, we have to be conscious of new things to learn, and my dog would be one of these that would be saying, I'm not doing anything until you give me the treat. This has been around for a while, but I share this briefly. If I had a full course with you, I would share the idea of what's in your control and what's out of your control. But essentially, one thing I wanted you to hyper focus on. What's out of your control outside this circle is other people's opinions of me. The other people's opinions can sometimes bring us down. All right. And you got your past and your future. These things, you don't know what the future is. And your past, you may have wanted to change. but things can be controlled somewhat by your attitude. So this has been around a while. I love this. Not everybody is a fan, but Ikigai. And think of this. Can this actual nirvana be achieved? Well, think about what you love in your life. What does the world need from a humanitarian standpoint? What you can be paid for and what you are good at. Now, what's kind of neat, if you look at what you love and what you're good at, that's a passion. If you look at what you love and what the world needs, that's a mission. If you look at what the world needs and what you can be paid for, that's a vocation. And finally, what you're good at and what you can be paid for is a profession. I haven't arrived there completely, my friends, but if we could integrate all four of those areas, according to some of our fine Japanese scholars, you can reach this. And I'm still working on that myself. Camus once said, in the midst of any hate that you find, I find that there was within me an invincible love. In the midst of tears, I found there was within me an invincible smile. In the midst of chaos, I found there was within me an invincible calm. But where this took true relevance for me is I realized through it all, and that in the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And to add to this, Camus says, and that makes me happy, for it says that no matter how hard, and in this day, some of you might feel this, the world pushes against me, within me, there's something stronger, something better pushing right back. And I hope you keep that sense because you've been put on earth for a reason. Eckhart Tolle also resonates with me. The primary cause of your unhappiness is never the situation, but your thought about it. Be aware of those thoughts you're thinking and try to separate it from the situation, which is, in Tolle's mind, always neutral. It is as it's supposed to be. Sometimes easier said than done. Things don't always fit the way we expect, everyone. As you know, I always found this is kind of fun, you know. Sometimes there's a simple solution out there, and then we're trying to do something that's using our newest technology when it's not really needed. And just the beauty of what art for art's sake can do. I always thought this is intriguing because this is a woman in modern times who was able to dress up in a nature to show that it almost represented a portrait, which was done in the 1800s. Just beauty in and of itself. And sometimes, you know, you may ask for something you need, and then you're given more than you need. You know, this little dog really only needs one ball, but they're providing three. And I'll share this with you. Sometimes, again, things come out the way we don't expect, and it can be very frustrating. This happened when I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin during the pandemic. And I went to the vending machine and I had to take a picture because, you know, all I wanted in this case, one of my favorite candy bars was a Kit Kat. And I wanted to get the Kit Kat, which is, you know, listed at $1.75 normally. Well, the rows B and C weren't operating well. $501.75 per candy bar. That's an expensive sugar rush. And maybe you didn't know this, but Babe Ruth, the famous Babe Ruth, just to give you an idea, I never expected nor knew this about him, but he used to be somewhat of a stuntman. Planes would fly over in the late 20s, early 30s when he was a baseball star, and they would come at an incredible speed being dropped from the galaxy down to Earth, and he would try to catch them. And he didn't catch every one. He missed once in a while. But the fact that he also had this other life besides baseball was quite intriguing. So, can happiness be taught? Seligman believes, and he's one of the experts in the field, we learn more when you light candles than when you curse the darkness. So, even when you're in that stinking thinking mode or in a point where things aren't working out the best for you, looking for the light is so important. And I truly believe this. I've seen this in countless research. Rohrer and some of the other researchers you can find on your own leisure time, but you can change 40% of your life. Um, this is kind of disconcerting. 50% of your individual differences in happiness are due to genetic factors. So some things you're just blessed with or cursed with. Okay. But 10% are due to life circumstances. And, some of that is out of your control. But the revealing positive aspect, 40% you can change by your own volitional choice activities. I also, I would love to see you in person for this, but what would you prefer? I know where I am on this. Pandemic is now over, but I'm kind of an 80-20 person. I love 80% office and 20% work from home. But boy, what a paradigm shift we're in, ladies and gentlemen. Um, I'm seeing a lot of our younger generation says, hey, 20% office, 80% work from home. Some companies and many schools are saying, look, we need you in at least 50% of the time, if not 60% of the time. Amazon came out with some rules on that recently. Part of contentment and happiness is being able to let go. And sometimes the act of letting go is far greater power than defending or hanging on. And as I mentioned, pure beauty. I even think this is pure beauty, everyone. A Model T or a car from the past that was being able to be dissected, and you could see how that thing we take for granted, cars are done. That's also beauty. Or this little child as a small microcosm of a huge world we're in, and this is just a huge redwood or sequoia tree. And sometimes love comes in an unexpected way or a way that we wouldn't expect. But this is beauty. This brings happiness and joy. Or aesthetic beauty, someone just working a work of art in the sand. Or family and friends. We all need it. Sometimes our family or our friends get on our nerves. It happens for all of us. Short story for you on this. Of course, our famed American bald eagle rarely will let any bird sit on its shoulders, but you can look this up. I had to verify this because at first I thought this might be AI generated, but the crow or the blackbird is allowed to ride on the eagle's back. Now, notice on the bottom right corner, yeah, as friendships can entail, this bird is actually harassing the bald eagle and pecking at him, but the eagle allows it to happen. Sometimes friendship involves that. You might be in agreement sometimes. You sometimes have to travel on your own, as the top right picture indicates, but you can also work together in tandem and in harmony. I found, and Elizabeth Kubler-Ross makes this so apparent, the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat. They've known suffering. Maybe that includes you. They've known struggle, loss, and have found their way out of the depths. Probably, unless you've been extremely gifted in life, you've probably experienced loss and suffering. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people don't just happen, and they don't happen overnight. If I had a long time, I would talk about how do we grow. But I can share with you my growth in my life as I've hit 6 decades on the earth tends to be like this green picture in the top left. But I got to tell you, there are times where I'm in the bottom right where it looks like I'm going backward and it's mixed up. But I eventually am learning new things about myself. I've always hoped I'd be on this purple trajectory where it's all kind of smooth sailing and an exponential growth, but that has not been my journey. You can see where you might be. Rather than defining your success by the type of car you drive, Joshua Becker mentions we may define it by the number of people we picked up in life and set down on a better road. And I'll share this for some of you who are participants. If you went to high school with me, You might know this. I had a light blue powder Chevette. It was a little lighter blue than this, and we didn't have a cat driving. But my first car was a powder blue stick shift Chevette. And when I taught high school, 15 and 16-year-old kids would come up to me trying to build a relationship besides the content you're teaching. And they'd say, Mr. Kotz, what kind of car did you drive? And I said, I drove a Vet. And some of the boys in particular, some of the girls too, they'd say, oh, you are so cool. You had a Vet. And I said, well, it's maybe not the same Vet you're thinking. And say, do you have pictures? I said, I do. And I showed them the pictures and I showed them the Chevette, and they didn't quite think I was as cool. Point is, sometimes we have expectations of people or we want to project that onto them, and it's not what they had in mind. So, leadership. And I think, oh, you are in for an exciting talk if you come to see Mary Jacobs, our Associate Dean, next webinar that we offer. But I want to talk briefly about leadership. You know this gentleman. Some of the best advice I've been given: don't take criticism from people you would never go to for advice. 6 traits of an inspirational leader. I do like these. They're calm. They show their human side. We all make mistakes. They listen. They're resilient. They show integrity, and they develop talent. Kathy Lockwood is really good, and she's an interesting and fascinating leadership counselor to follow. The bosses we remember, I don't know if you've seen this, but I really like these 9 elements. But you got a safe space. Maybe you got career doors open for you. They defended you when you needed it. They inspired you to stretch higher. They developed you as a leader. They recognized you at times. They lead by example. They told you that your work mattered and you matter, and they forgave you when you made mistakes, which we do need more in this time in our lives. They're responsible for creating an environment where everyone feels safe enough to be themselves, from the famous Simon Sinek. And great leaders are not the best at everything. They find the people who are not necessarily the smartest people in the room. Your role as a leader is to bring out the best in others, even when they know more than you. Wanda Wallace brings that to our attention. And some other modern leadership traits that literally, in the research, it indicates these can contribute to our happiness. The idea of having empathy, compassion, and flexibility, some of those soft skills, but also being mindful, having a forward thinking of strategy and dedication are so vital. For our growth, if you give respect, you get respect. And if you get respect, you give respect. And it becomes a cyclical notion. Maybe it's as simple as that, everyone. Hopefully, one or more of these ideas may appeal to you. The leaders who don't listen are eventually surrounded by people who don't speak. And Mandela brings this to our attention. Today, in this world, we are challenged, and it's a good challenge for us. Our world is not divided necessarily by race, color, gender, or religion. Our world is divided into wise people and fools. Fools divide themselves by race, color, gender, or religion. We are human beings on this earth that all matter. And a person who feels appreciated will always do more than what is expected. It is truth. I found this fascinating, that could lead to your happiness or contentment at a minimum. If you see a leader going kind when the going gets tough, you've got the right leader. And finally on this, you might be an excellent musician. You might be an excellent leader of a band. But if you don't turn around and look where your followers are, they may not be able to complete the picture of playing wonderful music. The Talmud mentions, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Maybe things are smooth sailing for you at this time, but do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So we have a freedom, everyone, but with that comes a responsibility. Let people know you care about them. In the end, only three things mattered: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of the things not meant for you. Some things you just have to let go, and other things you can retain. But as you continue to grow and change, you find, I need to let that go. And I need to also pursue these other growth avenues. Never push away the only one who would always be there for you. Many people do that in families, and it's somewhat horrific. It's sometimes tough. If you're on different political spectrums or you just don't agree, you sometimes push away those people that were near and dear to you at one time. And I found this from a young person. I'd like to know the source, but if you see someone falling behind, walk beside them. If you see someone being ignored, find a way to include them. Always remind people of their worth. I'm telling you, everybody, and you've seen this, I hope. If not, inspire yourself to try it. One small act could mean the world to them. It's true. Some other comments I have for you. Always look beneath the surface. There's more to the story if you look into the bottom panel. And hard to do. I love Facebook currently, as Mary Jacobs mentioned today, our associate dean. But you know what? If you get too concerned about likes and love on Facebook or Instagram or however you affirm others or detract from them, if you concentrate too much on that, it will take you and your heart and eat you alive. So maybe it's as simple as just doing something like this on someone's hood of a car. Yes, it will melt. Yes, it's temporary, but it might make their day. I'll share this with you because, again, when you've been on Earth as long as I have, I think of letters like this. And if I was in this state of mind, this is what Jules was sent by Brian. Listen, I'm on a plane that has been hijacked. If things don't go well and they're not looking good, I want you to know that I absolutely love you. I want you to do good, have good times. Same with my parents. I'll see you when you get here. I want you to know that I totally love you. Bye, babe. Hope I will call you. Came from Brian Sweeney on the United Airlines flight 175 during 9/11. Life is too short, everybody. Do you really know the true impact? You will never know it on those people you have around you. I'm lucky that I have people who care about me. You never know how much someone needed that smile you gave them. You never know how much your kindness turns someone's entire life around. Don't wait for someone else to be kind first. Don't wait for better circumstances. Nikki Bonas is a very good writer and talks about kindness at great length. Listen, observe, and help. I've been guilty of this when you're in the midst of a project and you think you know what you're doing. Somebody gives you a nice recommendation, but you don't take it or you're too busy to listen. Take some time to listen. I move forward on that, but a lot of times we're listening to the reply when there's so much we could do to understand. And I've tried to bring this in for my own life, this idea of the 5 Ps. Maybe you're a spiritual person and you like prayer. Maybe you need to set more priorities. Maybe you just need to get in touch with your own self and get inner peace. As you can tell, I do like to accentuate the positive, but I think it also requires us to be patient. Difficulties will arise. You can see it in their faces. Not a word needs to be said. And you can get upset and angry. And somebody could even steal your shoes. This is the famous Jim Thorpe, who was representing the United States as an American Indian. And he was also a fantastic athlete. But to try to permit him from succeeding, someone stole his shoes. This is a real picture. One of his teammates lent him shoes, and you can tell these aren't the best athletic shoes to run in. But because one of his shoes was missing, he had a teammate that gave him another one. That can contribute to people's happiness because you looked out for them. And also, it helped Jim to finish well in the race. Taking care of ourselves, very important. I used to be one of these people on the top, how we're taught to measure success, salary and your job title. But you'll find everybody, and some of you do this earlier in your lives than later, but that's good to look at job title and salary, but you got to look at some free time you need, liking what you do, taking care of your physical health and your mental health. It's very important to look at other aspects besides climbing the ladder. There's no need to rush. What's meant for you always arrives on time. Some of us say, I don't know if I buy into that. But I think if you reflect as you get older, you will see that's true. Maturity is learning to walk away from people and situations that threaten your peace of mind, self respect, values, morals, and self worth. Easier said than done. But if you can extricate yourself from those situations when possible, that can contribute to your well being and happiness. And without going to all of these, but I love this. It's possible to be successful and traumatized. You could be smiling and still struggling. You can be kind and you can set boundaries. You're not a pushover. You can be capable and lost at times. You can be valuable and you can be flawed. You can be valuable and even powerful. I'm an extrovert, but I also need to have alone time and collect my thoughts and see what I'm all about within. You can be an introvert and you can reach out, and you can be loving and still questioning. We talk about red flags in people, but there are many green flags in people that we should be aware of. They celebrate your wins, they remember small things about you, they respect your boundaries. You feel energized after seeing them. They listen without being defensive. We can all fall into those categories, myself included. And they allow you to be fully yourself. They make you feel safe. You don't have to watch what you say all the time, and they support your goals. So, the reminder what we see and what someone is actually going through may be two variant things. Beautiful things start to happen in your life when you distance yourself from negative things and ideas. But you can't put your head in the sand. Don't get me wrong. You can self actualize this way. And staying positive doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time. I wake up that way fairly well if I'm well rested. But by the end of the day, sometimes I'm just smoked. My energy is gone. But it means that even on hard days, you know better ones are coming. Hopefully, you don't see these things that drain your batteries, but you can just imagine you don't have purpose. You're dealing with office politics. You've got too much on your plate. You're not being challenged, or there's a mismatch with your company culture. Those things can drain your happiness and who you are and what you want to express. That this is definitely me still. How old do you have to be before you know what's going on? I'm still working on it, my friends. And as a writer, and not a full successful writer, I haven't been on the New York Times bestseller list, but I always say, I've got a story to be told. And I go, oh, well, maybe not. And the stinking thinking comes in, and I have to just come back with a new perspective and a refreshed perspective. Connect with people, please. It means something. Luck's involved once in a while, you got to admit, and there's still beauty if you look for it. Hopefully someday you will be bathed in a light. This is a picture from Peru. It might have been altered somewhat because I look at this, but there is actually a waterfall in Peru that shoots this golden light. And it's possibly due to the reflection, but I hope you get that light that shines just on you every so often. And possibly, even in the cracks of life, beauty will come out of it. And I can't say this enough. I had a fortune cookie when I was at Lien Chin. I opened it up and it says, Um, you can't hit the target if you don't take a shot. So you have to keep trying. And hopefully you can grant yourself serenity. It's not the one you typically would see, but God grant me the serenity to stop beating myself up for not doing things perfectly, the courage to forgive myself because I'm working on doing better, and the wisdom to know that you already love me just the way I am. Take a look at that. It's pretty amazing. Somebody needs you out there. The biggest mistake we make in life is thinking we have time to be, so we've got to be present, be kind, love more, and love now. If you can imagine being on the ship coming back from World War II, that is a joyous occasion. Marie Calment, as we wind down here, I wanted to share with you. She lived to, I believe, the age of 114. She, at one time, was the oldest person on the earth that was documented from France. When asked how she attributes her longevity and what she attributes it to, she says, I avoided getting into major arguments. I tried to eat small portions. And in her case, she loved a glass of red wine every day. But she was quite an individual. And I hate to say this, everybody. I'd like to think that we contribute to our health by making good choices. But from what I understand, she also liked to smoke. So that's contrary to the research. Remember, that's our dog, but I wanted to just make sure the size of your audience doesn't matter. So keep up the good work. Do what you can for at least one individual or more, and that includes mammals. Our dog, he has a simple life. He just loves a good treat in a cup. And you just can't stop doing things for others. Sometimes those little things occupy the best parts of their hearts. Laugh often and never forget who helped you out while everyone else was making excuses. You're exactly who and what and where you are supposed to be, and you are lovely. It's possible. I'm working on this, but maybe you'll hit that point of grace where you're exercising love, you're being kind, you show mercy, you show favor to others, not favoritism, and the disposition to benefit or serve another. Make it every moment count, not to be cliche, but truth. And yes, you can celebrate with that. And I'll leave it at that and turn it back over to our Associate Dean, Mary Jacobs.
Paul, I'm so inspired. You have so much going on and so many great thoughts. And I'm like you, I like to put and share inspirational words and cards and the like all over my house. So thank you for your time and your wisdom and sharing what I know you spent a lot of time in developing this presentation. So many, many thanks. With that, I just would like to open it up if we've got people that would either like to make a comment in the chat or come on. Michaela, a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And another one from Chell Page. Thank you, Dr. Kotz. When you think
You're
of people in your past, Paul, that have inspired you, that have made a difference, can you really talk about each of us can make a difference? Are there some people that stand out for you?
there are so many, and so I try not to just focus on just one. But I'm going to take the opposite of that, Mary, in the sense that one thing that kind of was a catalyst for me to be more aware is I was working in Kansas City in it was called the Family House. And I was there on a volunteer basis in between jobs when I was a young man. And I had a guy that was in the dumpster, and it was an industrial sized dumpster. And he called to me while I was washing windows at this site and asked me to come over. And I'm like, this guy's calling me from a dumpster. Well, one of the things that I found out is that every Tuesday morning they would haul an industrial strength dumpster into the air and dump it out, much like you see in our local communities here. But I didn't realize that Joe lived in the dumpster the other days.
Wow.
And he had he would pull his things out before the Tuesday dump, and he would end up putting this small child size card table back into the dumpster. He would go ahead and put these two chairs that seem like children's sized chairs and a rickety blanket. And he says he offered me a banana, and it happened to be a fresh banana from the dumpster. And he asked if I wanted to play some cards, and in particular, cribbage that he was using with popcorn kernels. And I looked at this man and I thought, God, I was thinking about how hard my day was as a young man. And I looked at this individual and found that this individual was assigned to me to maybe take stock of the gifts I've been given versus things that I don't have.
Oh.
So there are many management experts. I get inspired by you, Mary, as well as our associate dean. But to isolate just one, I'm kind of I want to say a good cornucopia of many people who have influenced me over life.
Well, and I believe it was Leah that asked if we would share this. And Leah, we will share you the link so you can go back and take another look at the video and find a number of these inspirational quotes that Dr. Kotz has shared with us. And can't say enough. I don't know if you're getting a chance to read the chat, but incredible words of thank you and appreciation for your presentation today. And like always, Paul, you hit it, you inspire us. I'm lucky enough to follow you on LinkedIn and Facebook because what, 2 or 3 times a week or even more some days where you've met someone,
Mm.
it's made a difference that you write about that. And then clearly by the people that respond um, to what you talk about, it makes an impact on what people think and feel, and you inspire people and you remind us about, small, simple things that we can do, right, to make a difference with people in our personal lives and our professional lives.
I appreciate that. I know you might have some questions in the chat. I haven't been able to access those, but I'm open.
Okay, I'm going to look. I see John Ebert here. Are you familiar with Janet Hagberg's model of personal power?
Mm.
And then, if so, thanks, John. How do you think then relates to the Venn diagram of happiness?
Ah, great question, John. Yes, I have some background in that as well. As you know, that wasn't included in the presentation. But when it comes to, just enhancing that personal power, what I have found that if you can build those elements into your life, some are not always going to work out as smooth as you would like. You can build your own sense of power within. I don't know if this helps, but with our upcoming speaker, our associate dean is actually going to be handling the question and answer from Arthur Brooks. But Arthur Brooks talks about envy, and I was surprised. Like it's a fascinating book he wrote, to Getting the Life You Want. He's going to speak about some of those elements, but envy can be good, and that it contributes to some of that personal power. There's a sense of benign envy where you say, oh, I see somebody that I really look up to and wish I could be like them. But then where it gets to be a problem for us is where it turns into malicious envy, where it's like, it becomes destructive and we're trying to take that person down, or we're trying to maybe have them be misguided for our own personal growth. That doesn't contribute to our personal power. And I think the author you referenced would also agree with that. But I'd be glad to have an in-depth discussion with you on that, John, at another time.
Thank you. All right, Paul, any last words of wisdom? I mean, you provided just incredible inspirational words and stories and the like, and a lot to take in and consider. Trisha has using the listening iceberg this afternoon during a critical conversation. So clearly
Mm.
some key takeaways for people that have joined us today, but um, any final words as you wrap up today?
I would say, I think for all of us, you just have to be good to yourself. I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit, and life can actually throw us too many hurdles. Um, and then we're not sure how to get above it. But I can't put. Some people say, "Can't you define happiness for us?" And I would say it's tough for me to put it in a few sentences, but I've seen it, I've felt it, and I've experienced it, and I think it varies for all of us. And there are few universals, and my list and the things I've experienced may not represent how you define it, and it could change if you ask me another day. But at this writing, there's so many aspects I could go into that are important to me. But a lot of times it may be feeling, a rain hit you unexpectedly when you're overheated, or it could be when someone sees your authentic value and lets you know it. It's when someone's kind to you when all appears lost. Um, those things are important. And some people say that's almost too much of the soft skills. You need to have strategy, you need to have a plan. Those are the things that are important, especially in a business setting or having an academic setting thrive. But to me, I think it's important to see that we're all human beings on this earth that can contribute, and we all have such value and things to give back. So never forget that.
And I think, Paul, if I could summarize what I really feel about you, it's authenticity, right?
Mm.
And you bring that out in others, and being who you are, and being authentic, and sometimes even being raw, right? With challenges that you've had, and sharing those challenges and the lessons learned is just very, very powerful. So I'm so grateful for your time with us today. And just two quick reminders. We have one last in our speaker series that started in the fall, which actually I'm leading on the topic of entrepreneurship, and that'll be in a month on Wednesday, April 30th. And then also look forward to some other things that we're currently working on. We're going to do more speaker series over the summertime about careers and different programs that align with St. Mary's master's degree. But we're grateful to you, Paul, and to other colleagues here at St. Mary's that have spoken throughout the series. And this is the fifth and sixth, one last one, and more to come. And we see the value in the participation and in the work that we're doing. So thank you to everyone who joined us today. Special thanks to you again, Dr. Paul Kotz. And I see a book and a speaking tour in your near future.
We have a few books out there, but as I said, they're not national bestsellers, but they have a niche market. I'd also, Mary, I've got to add a big plug for St. Mary's University, to check out what we have to offer in our undergrad and in particular for us, our graduate programs. I work in the doctoral end, but our grad programs are outstanding and they're at a good cost level too. So check it out if you're from the outside looking into our university. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Thank you. One final comment, and then we'll wrap up here. Madeline Coffey, who has been working with us and help organize these series, will actually send out the recording of the webinar, so you have that information. If
Mm.
anybody has questions regarding St. Mary's, Dr. Katz's program, or other St. Mary's programs, you can certainly email us back, and we're happy to follow up with you as well. So thank you again, Paul. It's always great to spend some time with you, and I think the timing was perfect too in the world that we're living in today, which feels a little more stressful. And I think focusing on positivity, excuse me, is what we all need right now. So thank you.